Um, there we go. Hi everyone, and another episode of the Switch It Up campaign. And today I'm joined by the amazing Claire McLean. She is founder and CEO at Realise HR. And we're going to talk a little bit about Claire's personal experience of being put into early menopause for medical reasons, and then also her view on what could happen in the workplace to make this kind of experience a lot easier for women going forward. So thank you for joining me today, Claire. It's great to talk to you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's lovely to be here and chat. Great.
Cool. So can you just tell us a little bit about your own personal story so that we understand?
Yeah, of course. So I was 37 years old when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Whilst I don't look at, I'm still just 37. No, I'm only kidding. But so 37 years old, diagnosed with breast cancer, bit of a whirlwind. Went through an awful amount of procedures and treatment, and very invasive treatment. And the cancer that I had actually is estrogen receptive. So what that means is that the breast cancer, the cancer itself, estrogen grows much faster than another type of breast cancer. Yeah. So what was really important as part of my treatment was to remove any estrogen from my body so that the cancer couldn't grow. So after my chemotherapy, I actually went on a 12-month hormonal treatment to do exactly that. And basically from one day to the next, because of this hormonal treatment and it removing estrogen from my body and stopping it do what it did, I was plunged into the menopause. And then I did that for 12 months. And then 12 months after that, they took us another step further and they actually removed my ovaries. Right. So that was another big hit on my home. That was the final straw, of course. So it was brutal. It was quite brutal, to be honest with you, at such a young age. And having seen my mum go through the menopause, she was early 40s when she went through it, started to go through it, and the change, as they call it, that generation. And and I remember some of the kind of things that my mum went through, and you know, the hot flushes. Well, it was actually unbearable. Like, I found the hot flushes really unbearable. Really embarrassing. Like, you know, I was head of HR for a very dynamic, growing business, very male oriented in the construction and engineering industry. Yeah, and actually, I found it. I was really embarrassed about my hot flushings in the middle of a meeting, a board meeting, very important meetings, and having to get up and open the window, and men looking at me going, "Claire, are you all right?" Like, yeah, I'm having a hot flush, and but found it very, very embarrassing. But that's how it all came about for me, Verity.
And I know you talk about the hot flushes there. Did you have any other symptoms that were difficult to manage?
Yeah, so brain fog has been a real difficulty of mine in terms of concentration levels. So being able to concentrate and being able to remember, my memory has gone from actually being very, very good to not great, to be fair. Much to my husband's frustration. I can't remember anything. But I know some of that is contributed by the chemotherapy, and you get brain fog or something. But actually, even after that, the menopause has not helped with kind of that brain fog and clarity of thought and being able to concentrate and remember things. And, you know, I never used to have to write anything down, and I used to have a very good memory, but now I have to write everything down and say, actually, I've forgotten that. But it's like, it's not because I wasn't listening, it's because genuinely I have forgotten. It's just completely gone.
And so I guess HRT is out of the question in that situation.
It is. Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, and I've also got to be I've also got to be careful with some foods that actually have natural estrogen in them.
Really?
So, like,
I was going to say, so you
soya.
Yeah,
so there's other foods that I have to avoid, because I have to avoid estrogen at all costs, and I actually take a pill a day to get rid of if there is any estrogen left in my body at all after the treatment that I've had, then this pill stops estrogen being produced in the first place. So there are other parts of your body other than your ovaries that produce estrogen, and this pill that I take stops all of that as well.
Blimey, I was going to say, we've been exploring, you know, other natural therapies that you can do rather than going into HRT. And obviously, as you say, soy and all the kind of photoestrogens that are found in food is a way to do it. So you can't have any of that.
I have to avoid that. Is
there any way to help you manage then the symptoms, or have you just have to put up with it?
Not really. So diet is one thing. So I've cut out caffeine from my diet, so I don't have caffeine. I've pretty much cut out alcohol apart from any special occasions. Because I also have osteoporosis because of all the treatment that I've gone through, so that helps with that. And just a very healthy diet and lifestyle. I mean, I've always been a good eater, but I pay more attention to it now than I ever have. So there isn't anything really that I can take that really has worked, and I have to put up with a lot of them, the side effects.
That's really bad. And obviously, I know, you know, osteoporosis can be a symptom of menopause as well, but if it's been caused by your treatment, there's not a lot you can do, so it's a double whammy really, I guess.
So it was just last year that I was diagnosed with osteoporosis. So the last year I've gone through understanding what that actually means to me, and what it means to my diet, what it means to my lifestyle, and my exercise routine has completely changed from high impact to very low impact, and all of that, you know. So and the other symptoms of menopause is actually, well, weight gain is a real, you know. Age, you know, as we get old, but actually I'm not the same weight as what I used to be, and my weight gain was overnight very evident, which isn't great for your confidence, is it? So a lot of these things aren't great for your confidence, are they? And I think I've learned that I do research a lot of things, and I work on my own kind of personal resilience and well-being and mental health, and I do a lot of self-help and learn a lot and read a lot, so that helps. But to be more resilient and to help with some coping strategies and things like that, but that's through kind of me reading a lot, to be fair.
And from a medical perspective, how long is that likely to stay with you? You know, what have they sort of said, timescales?
So I take this pill I've been taking it for 5 years. I've got another 5 years to go.
Wow, okay.
And then it's in the, who knows what will happen after that, you know. We'll see, but that's as long as I would take this treatment, unless there's, of course, advancements in the breast cancer treatment all the time. So there might be further treatments that I'd be able to take at that point if needed. And it's a fingers crossed that it doesn't come back for me, Verity.
Yeah, of course. Oh my gosh. So I guess from I mean, it's a really, you know, moving story, and the fact that you are able to do what you do as a career, and you know, have founded your company, and I know you've got fingers in many other pies as well, which is fantastic. What have been the kind of key challenges for you in the workplace, at your level and in that position?
And I think, so I'm in a fortunate position that I can use my experiences to actually help get the message across to employers and, you know, clients. And we can talk about this, you know, in terms of well-being in general. And actually menopause is a topic that we need to talk about more of and understand more about. As you know, as people, we need to understand it more, and we need to raise awareness. So I'm fortunate that I can campaign for that in the job that I do, which is good, and I can bring my personal insight. And actually some of our clients have asked me to kind of chat to other women in the workplace about the menopause and about my experience, if that helps at all, which is lovely. So awareness is an education, and awareness, I think, is the biggest thing that we can do that will be most helpful. And because as soon as people understand and are aware, they can empathize, they can help, they can support, they can you know, managers can support. There's lots of things that companies can do to help individuals with, like, maybe some adjustments in the workplace to be able to support, because everybody's symptoms are very different.
Yeah.
Everybody's needs are individual to them. And it's not a case of saying, well, we do this for women in the menopause and a blanket. That wouldn't work.
Right.
So what I see happening now is that there are many companies that are raising awareness, making adjustments for people depending on their own individual needs and what would work for them. And that's really brilliant to see, but we need more of it.
Yeah, I was going to say,
we need to put that on steroids, don't we? Yeah.
It's a really, really small movement, isn't it? I think I read somewhere that it's only about 3% of the sort of corporate environment are actually doing this and actively looking at it. But I think it's a really, really interesting point that you make, that it's not a one size fits all. So I've seen a lot of things through my research, like, introduce a menopause policy. But that's almost a tick box exercise. If you don't know why you're doing it and you don't make it specific to the individual, it isn't really relevant, is it?
No. And I think, HR teams and wellbeing teams also need to understand what options are available for people for different circumstances, different symptoms, different needs as well. I think it is about understanding the menopause in general, really, to be able to give that specific advice for people.
It is, but I mean, it goes wider, doesn't it, than just the menopause? I mean, your issue was a women's health issue that could happen to anyone of any age. And, workplaces probably well geared up to support a returning employee who's had breast cancer or that kind of thing, and understand that they would need special circumstances, but not realizing actually, the knock-on impact of that, and then the menopause, and then afterwards, and so many other kind of health issues that impact women specifically that men will never know about, and women that don't go through it would never know about it as well. And I think this is it.
I didn't know anything about it, so I didn't really know anything about it until it happened to me, and only what I maybe saw my mum, but I remember her taking some evening primrose, and it was like, why are you taking that, mum? And so that's what I remember of my mum. But it's like, and my mum, obviously, when she learned about I was going through the menopause and everything that happened, she was like, oh, take some evening primrose, Claire. And I was like, I can't, because it's actually got estrogen, it's a natural remedy that they advise not to. So it is a learning curve, isn't it? And you don't wake up one day and go, oh, I know everything about the menopause and I can support my colleague to go through it. You just can't, can you?
No,
so
I think
the
you're
education.
Right. Education all the way, and that's what we're trying to do with Switch It Up. So it's really great to have somebody that's been through it and understands and has that HR perspective as well. I found it fascinating, to all the people that I've spoken through on this journey, that just the difference in their experiences and how they've faced things at work. I mean, there's an inordinate amount of ladies that actually leave their jobs at this time in their lives, isn't there?
Yeah, and that, for me, that I can't understand that, like, not from their perspective, but from how can an employer, how can we have more meaningful conversations with our employees, with our colleagues, to understand what's going on in your life that actually would mean that you have to leave a job that you mostly love and that you've spent a lot of time building up, and a career and all the rest of it. I think that is really sad, and it's such a shame, because these are natural things that happen to a woman's body, right? So it is natural. We don't need to shy away from that. We need to acknowledge that it's natural, and actually it's none of our fault as to what's happening, but we shouldn't need to resign from our positions because of the problems that it causes, or the relationships, maybe the relationships in work maybe don't help with the menopause and what we're feeling, and how we act in work, or how we're supposed to act in work, and the stigma around it and all of that kind of stuff. And I just think that's really sad, and you know, I really do think it's sad.
I saw something in the Guardian at the weekend about a rising number of employment tribunals based on people feeling discriminated against at work because of the menopause, and it's like that is seriously just has to be a lack of education, you know.
Yeah, and that,
other than that.
That's right. It is lack of education. But again, I just think that's really sad that there's been a breakdown in employee, employer, whatever the circumstances at work. And, you know, nobody should be treated differently, unfairly because of a natural cause of their women's health. I mean, but equally, it is difficult to maneuver around if you're not aware of what it is and how to talk about it as a man. You know, it is very difficult for men to talk about this quite openly without the knowledge and fear of getting it wrong as well. So I actually, you know, I empathize and with men who are quite happy to talk about it, but don't really know how, and don't know how to have the conversation, don't want to put the woman in a situation and feeling like they're being scrutinized over it. Or so it is a very tricky situation. And I must say that the Davina McCall program that came on, I was sat and I knew that it was coming on, and sometimes it's a bit painful for me to watch some of these things because it reminds me of what I've gone through, and sometimes I don't want to be reminded of it. But my husband actually was like, well, I'm watching it. You might not want to watch it, but I'm watching it because I want to be able to see and understand it more, and understand some of the challenges out there and what women are facing. But also there'll be lots of things that I hear there that actually I recognise in you. So actually that might help me understand a bit more about what you're going through, you know, as much as I bang on that I can't blooming remember, and it's like not my fault, honestly. Like I genuinely can't remember. My brain is like fogged, and you know it's difficult to understand, isn't it? So I think that did wonders for. And there were lots of men. I remember the social media on that a couple of days later. Lots of men actually saying it was brilliant because I had no idea, and a lot of women who'd never been through it saying I had no idea what this was all about.
Yeah, I mean that was the inspiration for me to do this through After the Storm, because I was just left with so many questions and things that I didn't know about really. And I had been saying to my husband for a couple of years, we probably ought to start researching the menopause, because I know my mum went through it early. She was about 40, and obviously I haven't got her anymore, so I couldn't ask her about it. And I know she was vile. I mean, she was really hard to live with. That's all I kind of remember about that period of life. I still, again, was left with more questions, but I'm really keen to open that conversation up to men, because I think, you know, if women don't know about it, how can you expect men to know about it? It's not fair, and we don't talk about it, you know.
No, and it's kind of like the hidden, well, it's been in the past, gratefully, it's opening up now, but it's kind of been the hidden thing that women have that you don't talk about. You know, you don't talk about it, you know, there's maybe some women that feel a bit ashamed of going through it, and that's wrong as well. And we know it's wrong. We know that we shouldn't be ashamed, and I shouldn't have been embarrassed about having a hot flush in a meeting, but we are, and we need help to overcome those barriers that we're facing because of a natural thing that happens to our body. And we need to feel confident and competent to be able to have conversation around it and being able to chat about it.
Exactly. And informed ourselves as women to be able to go to the medical profession, because I've been absolutely blown away again with this research that I've been doing to see that, you know, there are some great doctors out there that know all about it, but there are some that really don't. And you know, it's not compulsory, is it? It's an e-learning module or something in the training for the GPs. And so the more knowledge we have as women and recognise what's going on with our bodies, the more chance we've got to get the treatment that we need or the support that we need from the medical profession. So it's and I find it, because I think, you know, the stigma around it is always like, oh, you're kind of past it when you've been through the menopause. There's that bit that for me is something that really doesn't sit well.
Jars with you, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh no. But I've spoken to so many ladies, and one lady that's doing talking for us at the Event Breeder Birmingham, she runs a website called Midlife Women Rock Project. And
Yeah.
and you know, it's a new opportunity to thrive and to embrace this new beginning that we all go through. And I think we've got to change the narrative on the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Not just in the workplace, but in society as well. And
I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think for your own, you know, your own confidence. So 2021 is my year of health. So, you know, so being diagnosed with osteoporosis last year, the 5 years that I've gone through that have been very tricky. I'm like, no, actually, this year is the year. I'm 45 next year. I'm like, this is the year. I'll be I was 6 years in May post-cancer, which is brilliant. And I cherish every single year that I have on this earth and this planet. And this was my year. But actually, I was like, actually, do you know what? Being the best possible health, mind and body, by the time I reach next year at 45, this is my year of health. And I've really embraced it, and I feel great, and I feel very energized, and I feel very optimistic, but I also want to help others who are maybe going through difficulties like I've faced. And if I can help one or two people with it, then I'd be over the moon, you know, just by sharing what I've been through. And if that helps, great. If it doesn't, fine. But if it does, then that's lovely.
I'm sure it will. And it's, I mean, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us, because I mean, you and I have spoken on a number of occasions, and that's exactly my view on this. If we're going to help one person, then I've done my job. And if I can bring all these wonderful people together to share their stories and their experiences and their knowledge, then hopefully between us we can do that. We can make a nice noise about it.
Definitely, I'm with you on that one, Verity. Definitely.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Claire, for speaking to me today.